Hey, buddy, drop the tablet. Let's see some real ID.
Look, I'm in a shift. My badge is right here.
Don't give me that attitude. The hospital isn't a hiding spot. I've worked here 10 years. You need to let me pass.
One more word and you're leaving in cuffs. Hands up.
You're making a huge mistake. Call your supervisor right now.
We're looking for Jerome Baptist. We have reason to believe he's working in this hospital. Step aside. I don't care what you believe. Patricia Reeves, the charge nurse, snaps back. Her voice is like ice, cutting through the sterile, humid air of the ICU. You're not going anywhere near my staff without proper authorization. We're federal agents, ma'am. The lead agent, a man named Morrison with a jaw like a brick, says. He reaches for his belt, not for a weapon, but for that posture of absolute authority that says he owns the room. We don't need your permission. Actually, a new voice joins in. Calm, melodic, but vibrantly dangerous. You do. This is a hospital. We have patient privacy laws, employee protections, and strict federal protocols you are currently violating. My name is Dr. Helena Kim, and I'm going to need you to take 3 steps back from my nurse's station. It's 2:45 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon at St. Mary's Regional Hospital in southern Florida. Outside, the sun is a brutal weight. But inside the intensive care unit, the air is thick with a different kind of pressure. Through the lens of a high-definition security camera, one of 32 capturing every micro-expression in the unit, you see the standoff. 3 ICE agents in tactical vests, their presence a jarring, dark blotch against the sea of clinical whites and blues. Facing them is a woman who weighs maybe 110 pounds, but is standing like she's made of rebar. And behind her? A man named Jerome Baptist. A man who spent 12 hours a day saving lives, only to find out the country he bled for in a Navy uniform was suddenly treating him like a ghost in the system. What started as a lazy database error was about to turn into a $14.5 million nightmare for the Department of Homeland Security. And it all started because 8 nurses decided that workplace solidarity wasn't just a phrase, it was a wall. To understand why the entire ICU was willing to risk their careers for Jerome, you have to understand who Jerome Baptist was. Jerome was 34 years old, a Haitian American with hands that doctors said could perform miracles during a code blue. He'd been brought to the U.S. at 2 years old, his parents fleeing the kind of political violence that makes a child grow up fast. He didn't just live in Brooklyn. He survived it, put himself through nursing school, and then did something most wouldn't. He enlisted. Jerome had served as a Navy medic, a corpsman, for 6 years. He'd stabilized wounded Marines in the back of vibrating transport choppers. He'd seen the worst the world had to offer and decided his response would be to provide the best care possible. By the time he reached St. Mary's, he was a naturalized citizen. He had the certificate. He had the blue passport. He had the honorable discharge papers. He was, by every definition of the law, as American as the agents currently glaring at him. But to Agent Morrison, Jerome Baptist wasn't a veteran or a lifesaver. He was a name match. Jerome is at the bedside of a 43-year-old woman in septic shock. The room is a symphony of hums and rhythmic clicks, the sounds of a life being held together by electricity and chemistry. He's talking to her, whispering about the weather, because he believes that even in a coma, a person needs to hear a friendly voice. That's when Patricia Reeves enters. Her face is ashen. "Jerome," she whispers, "don't react. Just listen. There are 3 agents at the station. They have your name. They're asking for you." Jerome's heart rate doesn't just climb, it gallops. He can see his own vitals reflected in the stress on his face. "ICE? Patricia, I'm a citizen. I have my papers at home. I have my Navy ID in my locker." "I know," Patricia says, her eyes hardening. "And they aren't getting to you. You stay here. You focus on this patient. If they want you, they have to go through me." She walks out, and the visual outrage begins. On the security feed, Agent Morrison tries to bypass the desk. He looks dismissive, his eyes scanning the rooms like he's hunting for a runaway, not a professional. "Where is he?" Morrison demands. "Jerome Baptist. We know he's on shift." "You are disrupting a Level 1 trauma environment," Dr. Kim says, stepping into his path. "Do you have a judicial warrant signed by a judge?" Morrison flutters a piece of paper. "I have an administrative warrant. That's all I need." "In a public park? Maybe," Dr. Kim counters. "In my ICU? Not a chance. This is a restricted area. You are currently a biohazard and a legal liability. Leave, now." Morrison sneers. It's a micro-expression the jury will later watch 50 times in slow motion. "You people always want to protect the ones who don't belong. Move, or I'll charge you with obstruction." If you're ready to see this abuse of power exposed, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. If you think federal agents should be allowed to raid a hospital without a judge's signature, tell me why in the comments. But wait until you see what the nurses do next. Morrison makes a mistake. He decides to use physical intimidation. He takes a heavy step forward, trying to brush past Patricia. He doesn't realize that ICU nurses are the toughest people on the planet. They deal with death, trauma, and 24-hour shifts. They don't scare easily. As Morrison moves, a silent signal seems to pass through the unit. Nurse Sarah drops a clipboard. Nurse Elena steps away from her computer. Nurse Mike, a former linebacker, moves from the medication room. Within 10 seconds, 8 medical professionals in blue scrubs have formed a shoulder-to-shoulder line across the main corridor. It's a human wall. "You're not touching him," Patricia says, her voice low and dangerous. "You're not questioning him. And you're definitely not taking him anywhere." The security camera captures the sheer irony. 3 men in tactical gear, armed and authorized, being held back by a group of people whose primary weapons are stethoscopes and empathy. "You're interfering with a federal enforcement action," one of the junior agents, a guy named Miller, shouts. He reaches for his radio. "We need backup. We have multiple subjects interfering. And I'm calling the chief of medicine, the board of directors, and the local news," Dr. Kim says, her phone already at her ear. "Let's see whose backup gets here first." The tension is somatic. You can see the agents' hands hovering near their belts. You can see the nurses' chests heaving with adrenaline. Jerome stands behind them, his face a mask of suppressed rage and disbelief. He had served in the Navy to protect the very rights these men were currently trampling. "Mr. Baptist," Morrison yells over the wall of nurses. "If you're here legally, this will be quick. Just step out and talk to us." "Don't you dare answer him, Jerome," Patricia commands. "He has a right to remain silent," Dr. Kim adds, looking Morrison dead in the eye. "The Fifth Amendment doesn't stop at the hospital doors. Or do you need a refresher on the Constitution you swore to uphold?" Morrison's face turns a deep, bruised purple. He is being humiliated in front of a dozen witnesses and a battery of cameras. While the standoff continues, the hospital's legal counsel, a shark named David Wu, arrives. He doesn't come alone. He comes with a tablet and a direct line to the regional director of ICE. "Gentlemen," Wu says, his voice cutting through the shouting, "I suggest you check your tablets. I just sent a high-priority email to your field office." Morrison scoffs. "We have a name match, Jerome Baptist, Haitian national, outstanding deportation order from 2009. "Jerome Baptist, the person you're looking for, is 52 years old," Wu says, tapping his screen. "He is 5'8". He left the country voluntarily in 2011. Your name match is a lazy database flag." He turns the tablet toward Morrison. "This Jerome Baptist is 34. He's 6'1". He's a naturalized U.S. citizen. And, Wu pauses for effect, he is a decorated Navy veteran who held a secret security clearance. You didn't even bother to check his date of birth or his social security number, did you? The silence that follows is deafening. The junior agent, Miller, looks down at his own tablet. His eyes go wide. He whispers something to Morrison. Morrison doesn't apologize. He doesn't even look at Jerome. He just huffs, his ego bruised worse than his reputation. We'll verify this. If he's clean, he has nothing to worry about. But this interference, this isn't over. Oh, you're right, Dr. Kim says, as the agents finally retreat toward the elevator, followed by 2 hospital security guards who make sure they don't stop at any other rooms. It's just beginning. I hope you kept your body cams on. We certainly kept ours. Do you think these agents should face criminal charges for this kind of lazy targeting? Or should the hospital just be happy they left? Drop a yes or no in the comments. Because what Jerome does next is a masterclass in taking everything they have. Most people would have gone home, hugged their family, and tried to forget. Not Jerome. And definitely not St. Mary's. The hospital administration didn't just back Jerome, they weaponized their resources. They realized that if this could happen to a decorated veteran in a high-status job, it was happening to thousands of others who didn't have a human wall to protect them. Jerome filed a federal lawsuit 6 months later. The discovery phase was a bloodbath for the agency. Jerome's lawyer, David Wu, uncovered internal emails that exposed a quota culture within that specific field office. Agents were being pressured to hit detention numbers before the end of the fiscal quarter. One email from Morrison to his supervisor read, "Targeted a hospital in the 4th District. High probability of hits among support staff. We'll grab a few names from the registry and see who sticks." They weren't looking for criminals. They were fishing for bodies to fill a spreadsheet. Then came the depositions. Morrison was forced to sit in a room for 8 hours while Wu grilled him. Did you verify the date of birth? No. Did you verify the social security number? No. Did you check the employment eligibility through E-Verify, which the hospital uses? No. So the only thing you had was a name that is as common in Haiti as John Smith is in Iowa? Yes. The most damning piece of evidence, however, was the somatic realism of the security footage. The jury didn't just see a legal dispute. They saw Jerome's hands shaking as he adjusted a patient's IV, while men with guns called him a liar. They saw the suppressed rage in his eyes, the look of a man who had served his country only to realize his country didn't see him as a person. The government offered a settlement almost immediately. $75,000. Jerome rejected it. They offered $500,000. Jerome rejected it. They offered $2 million with a confidentiality agreement. Jerome stood up in the meeting and said the words that would define the case. "I want their names in case law permanently. My children need to see that justice can't be bought with a check and a hush clause. I want the world to see what you did." The trial lasted 4 weeks. The climax came when Morrison took the stand. He tried to act like a patriot, claiming he was just securing the borders. Wu played the ICU footage. He paused it on the moment Morrison tried to shove past Patricia Reeves. "Agent Morrison," Wu said, his voice echoing in the silent courtroom. In that moment, who was the hero? The woman protecting a dying patient, or the man trying to arrest her assistant based on a hunch? Morrison fumbled. "I was doing my job." "No," Wu countered. "You were doing your ego. You picked the wrong man that day. You picked a man who knows exactly what an oath of office means. You picked a man who bled for that flag while you were using it as a shield for your laziness." The jury didn't even need a full day. Violation of the Fourth Amendment. Unlawful seizure. Violation of the Fifth Amendment. Due process. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Racial profiling. $4.5 million in compensatory damages. $10 million in punitive damages, specifically designed to sting the agency's budget and force a policy change. It was one of the largest settlements for a single individual in the history of the Department of Homeland Security. Jerome Baptist didn't buy a fleet of Ferraris. He stayed at St. Mary's for another year to help them establish the Workplace Protection Protocol, a training program for hospitals nationwide on how to resist unlawful federal overreach. He eventually used the money to start a nonprofit law center that specializes in identity due diligence. They provide free legal aid to naturalized citizens and legal residents who are targeted by database errors. But the real victory happened in Washington, D.C. Jerome's case was so high profile and the footage so gut-wrenching that it led to a congressional hearing. Dr. Kim and Patricia Reeves testified alongside him. A year later, the Sensitive Locations Act, often called the Baptist Act in medical circles, was signed into law. It strictly prohibits immigration enforcement actions in hospitals, schools, and places of worship without a judicial warrant signed by a federal judge, except in cases of immediate national security threats. The 3 agents? Morrison was terminated. The other 2 were reassigned to desk duties in a remote office before eventually resigning. Today, if you walk into the ICU at St. Mary's, you won't see the standoff. But near the nurses' station, there's a small framed photo of the 8 nurses standing in that corridor. Underneath it, a simple quote from Jerome's victory speech. They thought they were looking for a name. They found a community. If this story moved you, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that standing together works. Subscribe and hit the bell because tomorrow's story is about a Karen who called the cops on a black intruder, only to find out he was the federal judge about to hear her eviction case. You do not want to miss that one. Drop a comment. What part of Jerome's story hit you the hardest? I read every single one. The case of Jerome Baptist remains a landmark because of the somatic stress involved. It highlighted the psychological toll of racial profiling. Jerome testified that for 2 years after the event, he couldn't hear the sound of an elevator opening without his heart rate spiking to 140. His victory wasn't just about the money. It was about the signature dialogue he delivered during his final deposition, a line that is now taught in civil rights law classes. You looked at my skin and saw a target. I looked at your badge and saw a betrayal. I spent my life saving people like you. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of it making sure you can never do this to someone like me again. Justice wasn't just served. It was delivered with the precision of an ICU surgeon.